Hey you guys, so I'm taking a pit stop right now, traveling on a mountain pass. So there might be a little sound in the background from occasional transfer trucks going by down below, but I just thought I would share about a plant that I'm sitting with right now while I'm waiting to meet a friend to do a hike, probably at about 9,000 feet or so right now, and it's so wonderful. There's like some rain coming through right now, and not just a plain old hot sunny day right now. It's we finally are getting maybe some early monsoons, but I'm in this little nook looking at plants, and yeah, I just thought I would share with you a little bit about this one right here that I'm sitting with. So whether you are familiar with the Southern Rockies or Appalachia, where I lived for years, and then I'm from the Piedmont region, which is next to Appalachia. So I grew up kind of in that area and spent a lot of time in that area. We also have a relative of this plant there. So when I first came to the Rocky Mountains, the Southern Rockies specifically, I was elated to find this plant growing at high elevation for the most part, or in riparian areas lower down, and it was really exciting for me. So, because when you get really tied into an area, really intimately woven into a specific place, and then you go and move or travel, or you're like me, you have formed deep bonds and relationships with places all over, it's really wonderful to see relatives near and far. So this was one that I was like, oh hi. So a few things to notice about it, and if you know anything about plants, you know that they often have patterns according to how they're related in a bigger taxonomy. So I love to learn plants by families because it helps me understand whether I'm looking at something that might be poisonous or food or medicine. And for traveling and moving about and going in between different ecozones, I can understand some of what's going on with the patterns of where these plants are growing and how, because often plants that are related, whether from a bigger place of family or lower characterizations like genus and species, they maybe have something in common ecologically and where they like to grow and how they like to grow, or whether they fix nitrogen, or whether they do other kinds of things to the soil. So I tend to get really into plant families, even though it is just one way to talk about plants. It's just one way of thinking about plants. It's a helpful one, especially if you travel even further out into the world, further away from where you call home, to be able to have at least some of the basics in mind. So with this plant, you can see that it has what we call a compound umbel, and umbels generally have so here it has a compound because it has multiple sets of umbels going this way and then this way again, and then compound, and umbels tend to have their flower stalks come in at a central point, versus there's other plants that, say like yarrow or elderberry, they're called corms, and their multiple compound flower structures come in at different places. So with this family, it's a characteristic that all of these come at one central point, so that's umbel. This family can often have aromatic members, not always. And it has both food, medicine, and poison members. So this is why this family is super important to know for that reason. It often has really, take a leaf and I'll show you closer up, really like divided leaves. So there's usually pretty dramatic margins in this family. And then a lot of members in this family are also culinary spices that we used all over the world. So it is a family that we have formed a relationship with as humans, and brought the medicine into our food, into our kitchens, and integrated them into our worlds and our lives. And a lot of the food traditions around the world that include spices from members of this family, people long ago figured out that they were beneficial for digestion or assimilation of nutrients, and both flavorful and nutritious. It just became a part of culture. So this family is, no matter where you are from in the world, has most likely somebody woven into the food tradition. So this particular plant smells really amazing. Even the leaves smell like, a lot of people say, anise. That is really just the smell that I think is most recognizable, even from the leaf. And it is medicine, well, not poisonous. So a lot of members in this family, it's the carrot family. Yeah, there are a few poisonous members in this family, and one being poison hemlock, another being water hemlock, and then there's, cow parsnip, which is more so that you can get blisters from the oils on the leaves, and the same with cultivated parsnip in that family as well. So cow parsnip is not necessarily poisonous in the same way that poison hemlock and water hemlock are, but it has not great effects if you expose yourself to the leaves and then get in the sun. It doesn't affect everyone though. I have walked many miles through cow parsnip leaf areas and not gotten any effects, but I have seen other people have really bad effects. But those are some of the main poisonous plants in this family. But this one is Osmorhiza genus. It's Western Sweet Cicely. And so when I was speaking earlier to how I've seen this plant in other places, when I was living in Appalachia and studying plants in Appalachia, we had two different species of Osmorhiza there deep in the forest. Generally, one of them we called Anise Root and one we called Sweet Cicely, but really they're really similar medicine. They have very minute differences in how you could tell them apart, but this one here is a different species, but it's really similar medicine, really similar aroma. It looks a little bit different in its growth habits, and I tend to find this plant deep in the forest or in dappled light here, or in open meadows between forest outcrops. That's what's really cool about the Southern Rockies here. You have these different forest clusters of especially small trees like chokecherries, often like red elderberry, sometimes rowanberry, and Saskatoon berries depending on your elevation, and then gamble oaks, again depending on your elevation. The higher up you go, some of these disappear, some appear. And this plant is pretty flexible according to the elevation, although you won't necessarily find it deep down at the lowest elevation below the pinyon juniper line, unless it's a special little microclimate by a riparian area. But here higher up, it really is varying in where you find it. But right now I'm in this Aspen Grove, but there is a lot of openings in the forest right here, as Aspen Groves can be, where there's a lot of different size trees coming up at different stages, often because they're clonal and they have disturbances that happen, whether it's avalanche or fire or whatever it is, and so there's often just like different sized trees coming up. So Sweet Cicely, the leaves are certainly wonderful to nibble on, or you can dry them and make tea or use them as the medicine, but the root is really what has the strongest medicine, the same as the species that I was first familiar with in Appalachia, with a couple species. And so it has a very strong smell of basically like a sweet anise. So anise is a plant also in the carrot family, and generally we use the seed in culinary food tradition to spice food, and like I said, to help with digestion and that kind of thing. And with this plant, it's a similar thing. Like, you can use the leaves or the seeds. There's a plant here. It has this is the same plant, but it's further along. This one right here is kind of in flower, tiny little flowers, but this one is in seed. And see if we can, I know it's going to be blurry if I go in, because no, it's not, because I have my camera on manual focus, so I'm not letting it go back and forth like crazy. But you can see this one's in seed. It has these long seeds. That's definitely a thing with Osmorhiza versus other carrots, is these long seeds, which you can find past flowering time and past this green seed stage, and you'll be able to really distinguish them often by that long seed on the compound umbel. So yeah, with this plant, I really like to make cordials. That was one of the first ways that I used this plant, is making cordial. So basically, cordials are some sort of alcohol and honey or other sweetener, and then using it in a formula with bitters, or as a digestive, like a pre-dinner elixir, kind of slightly stimulating to digestive juices, and just really making like concoctions like that you can take around eating food. Also, I'd put this in a tea blend if you have regular belly aches. It's also got some immune boosting qualities inadvertently. A lot of these plants that have this strong resinous medicine, one of its relatives, Osha, that's growing right around here too right now, and it's also flowering, they're related to each other, and Osha's more known for its immune system boosting qualities, plus a ton of other things, but right now we're just talking about Sweet Cicely. But so one of the ways to ID it has these the flowers are small and yellow, and it usually is about this height. It doesn't really get super tall. So some other carrot family plants get really tall, like Osha, and you won't find at this elevation poison hemlock or water hemlock. They tend to be lower down for the most part, and it has a strong smell. Like, you're not going to, the poisonous plants that you can get it mixed up with don't really have a good smell. They smell funny. They don't smell like not funny, but they smell kind of bitter and pungent in like a not food and medicine kind of way. But this smells like medicine. It smells like food. So that's one of the things to tell. It has some little tiny hairs, a little bit of fuzz here and there on the leaf, the stem. And I remember from the Osmorhizas in Appalachia too, at least one of the species there has more hairs on the stem and leaves. And yeah, it has these tiny little yellow flowers, and it has these leaves coming out at the around the joints. I don't know if you can really tell, especially with the green background, but the leaves are coming out small around these joints, and it's a pretty succulent kind of green, light green color too. But I love Sweet Cicely so much. I love seeing it in the forest, and when it's first starting to come up early in the spring, it's just small little leaves, and you can really like crush the leaf and smell the flavor. So, or in the scent. In the carrot family, you just got to be careful, like doing tasting. You got to be really sure that you are narrowed down to it being an edible carrot, or a medicinal carrot. You don't want to just taste test if it doesn't smell like food. Like, you don't want to taste test poison hemlock or water hemlock. So smelling is a good bet. That's less risky, I would say. But yeah, you're gonna find this one here at this elevation, and in this time of year it's flowering. And of course, what's interesting about the Southern Rockies is that we have so much variability because of elevation and aspect of who's growing where, when, why, what, who's flowering when. And here, you know, I got roses down at lower elevation the last couple weeks, and then they're done now, just like that. And I'm like, darn, like, well, I guess I gotta go up in elevation. So as I was coming up this pass today to go meet a friend, I saw, oh, there's roses still flowering up here, so I still have time to gather my rose petals before it's too late. So that's what's really cool about this region. And of course elevation's a factor, but also so many other things, like where the wind is blowing, or you know, what kind of geology the mountain range has or the area has. All these things come together. And of course past human interactions always a factor, whether there was traditional fire in an area or tending practices. They affect so many things. So I'm gonna leave it with that, but I just thought I would show you this wonderful plant, and I hope you go out and look for it. And you know, it's not amazingly abundant in this region, but I think it's regionally abundant, just like OSHA. But I would say that in the bigger picture, I would focus on tending this plant in a reciprocal manner, where you gather seeds. Sweet Cicely also has a root structure. If you do dig it and want to make cordials or medicine tincture with it, there's crowns that you can replant. That's what's really cool about this one. Carrot family underground parts vary, and one of the ways you can propagate plants to tend them, to keep them more abundant if we are gathering them for our cultural use or medicinal use, we need to study the ways that they reproduce and the ways that they grow. And one of the ways that this plant grows is not merely just a long taproot, but it has these crowns that you can replant. So you can take the roots and gather them for medicine, and then take that crown bit and replant it.